and gentlemen. My name is Ian Wilson. I'm the Academic Vice President at Utah Valley University, and I want to welcome you to the 2011 State of the University Address. A welcome to our faculty and staff and students and the UVU community. This is being broadcast throughout the institution for all to hear and participate in. I also want to make a special welcome and recognition to several people. Dan Campbell from our Board of Regents is with us, Steve Lund, who is the chair of our Board of Trustees, and of course Paige Holland. We always love to have her here and participate in these events. Each year we have an opportunity to hear from the president of the university as he reviews the happenings of past year and also gives us a vision for this upcoming year and for the future. We're very pleased to turn the time over to our good president, President Matthew S. Holland.
Well, I'm honored you showed up. Thank you. I extend a warm welcome myself to Chairman Lund, Regent Campbell, faculty, staff, administrators, students who are joining us here today in the Ragan Theater and across campus via an internet connection. I thank members of my cabinet for coming today, all of whom are here today except for Val Peterson, who is apparently up at the state legislature either getting tortured or having way too much fun. What he's not doing is making a name for himself. So he's got to work on his politicking, I think. Corey and I, as political scientists, will pull him aside after the session and work through that with him. I want to thank all of you for your hard work and constant service to the students who walk our halls and fill our classrooms. And any of those students who are here today, I extend a special welcome. You are the reason we are here and we do what we do. It remains such an honor to serve this institution. I regularly mention to my wife, Paige, and my children just how lucky I feel to be at this university with such caring, intelligent, and admirable individuals, as well as people like Ian Wilson. We all love Vice President Wilson, our local Canadian superhero. Yes, please, please. When I was complaining the other day about the cold, Ian smirked and said that at 60 degrees, Americans turn on the heat and the Canadians plant gardens. With escalating tones of great white North patriotism, he continued that at 20 degrees, Utahns wrap up in coats, scarves, and hats, but Canadians throw on a t-shirt. And at 10 degrees below zero, Californians fly away to Mexico when Canadians don only a light jacket. In a closing note of bravado, he boasted that at 20 degrees below zero, people in Miami cease to exist, but Canadians go lick flagpoles. I believe I bested him, though, when I stated, and this is rock solid fact, that at 150 degrees below zero, hell freezes over, and finally the Toronto Raptors win an NBA title. So. I think I won there, Ian. Okay. On a more serious note, I would like to express my profound appreciation for Ian for the way he has effectively stepped into the academic vice president's role, accepted the position on a permanent basis, and led out with his characteristic blend of fairness and firmness in the cause of increasing our academic excellence. I wish we had time for me to mention by name so many of the rest of you and what you have done for me personally, or more importantly, what you have done for this campus. I freely confess that one of the best parts of my job is the chance I get to brag about you. whether it be to a parent of a prospective student, a new legislator, a large gathering of community members, or even someone sitting next to me on a plane, like the nuclear engineer I visited with on the way back from Washington, D.C. last week, I never shy away from sharing my admiration and respect for the tremendous faculty, staff, and students we have here on this campus. It used to be a tradition in this country that, if circumstances warranted it, when the President of the United States began the State of the Union address, he would begin with a simple declaration, "The State of the Union is sound." Today, as an institution, we are facing some extremely challenging issues and circumstances. Yet, in spite of those issues and challenges, I say, without an ounce of reservation, that the state of the university is sound. This is so because of you. It is because of your countless hours of effort, your spirit of ingenuity, your passion for ideas, progress, and doing what simply needs to be done to help students succeed. It is worth noting here that these are not just the ramblings of a blindly proud president. This also happens to be the disinterested perspective of the Northwest Commission of Colleges and Universities, the acclaimed and authoritative accrediting agency for institutions of higher education in our region. Although I recently sent notice through email, I would like to announce once again that our accreditation has been reaffirmed at the associate and baccalaureate degree levels, and we are now accredited at the master's degree level. I think that deserves a round of applause. These designations are a tribute to all of you. Here I must also give a shout out again to our accreditation executive team for their yeoman's effort in preparing our self-study and hosting the site team. Thanks to all those who worked so hard on this effort, led by Linda Macon, Linda Pierce, and Mohammed El Saidi, who, rumor has it, has established a political action committee as he contemplates a run for the presidency of Egypt. In any case, after a thorough review of our self-study and every corner of our institution, the accreditation site team that visited our campus came away mightily impressed by the institution as a whole, but especially by the individuals they met. If I may, I would like to highlight just a few of the final commendations we received. This is not all of them, just a handful. 1, the committee commends the faculty, staff, administration, and trustees of UVU for their extraordinary efforts to accommodate rapid growth of the institution, for their willing spirit as they have consequently done more with less, and for their engagement with the institution and its programs. 2, the committee commends UVU for remaining student-centered throughout the transition in status and transformation in size. 3, the committee commends the institution for undertaking important additional work on academic, faculty, and student issues required for the maintenance of its unique dual mission through the Advisory Council on our unique educational mission. Indeed, the state of the university is sound. In thinking about this great vote of confidence in the quality of what we're doing at UVU in the midst of such challenge, my mind goes back to a distinct image. 2 months ago, I was on the East Coast for a few days of university business that took me to New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. Very late one night, after an event in Manhattan, the streets were remarkably empty, and I took a slight detour back to my hotel to drive by and then over perhaps my favorite sight on that storied island, the Brooklyn Bridge. Coming at it at night, as I drove down the East River Drive, the floodlights cast what was for me an electrifying glow on the bridge's long and intricate web of suspension wire, as well as the majestic limestone towers which stand as indomitable pillars of support, massive passageways, and great works of architectural art themselves with their neo-Gothic arches. It is truly an engineering and artistic marvel, rightly considered one of the 7 industrial wonders of the world. It is also for me now an apt symbol for what we are about here at UVU. In many different ways, I see UVU as the region's most important and attractive bridge. First and foremost, it is a bridge of success for thousands and thousands of students every year. many of whom would otherwise languish the rest of their lives in economic doldrums, intellectual ignorance, and civic obscurity, were it not for the substance and the skills they acquire as they pass through the portals of this campus. It is also a bridge between the needs and resources of the university on one hand and the community on the other. Such a bridge is more critical than ever for providing our students with the kind of projects, mentors, and supporters required to make engaged learning practical and meaningful, as well as for providing our surrounding community with the kind of economic development and regional problem solving needed to sustain a stable and healthy civic infrastructure, which is key for delivering a host of public goods, including education. As we face new and unprecedented levels of growth in this region, both the need and difficulty of providing an adequate educational bridge of success is more pronounced than ever. The challenge of facing the developers of the Brooklyn Bridge was that conventional wisdom had most people convinced you could not build a long, large bridge that was let me try this one more time. You could build a long, large bridge that was structurally weak, or a short, narrow bridge that could withstand volume and weight. And in the case of the Brooklyn Bridge, a long and wide bridge traversing the East River, which is more like an oceanic tide than a lazy river, the threat of structural instability seemed almost guaranteed. Today at UVU, we face some similar challenges. Conventional wisdom suggests that we must choose between being a large-scale provider of an educational product of marginal quality, or we can stop growing and become a much more selective institution of grade A university-level offerings. Restrictive and sturdy, or expansive and weak. Those would seem to be our choices as we face a torrential stream of new students over the next 10 years. But like the daring Roebling family, who envisioned the possibility of the Brooklyn Bridge, they then gave it their all, quite literally, to see it executed, we see a third alternative. We see an educational bridge that is at once inclusive and serious. More on those themes and their relationship in just a moment. Thanks to our predecessors and the work we have done already, construction of this bridge is underway. In some ways, it is already built. As our accrediting report indicates, we are providing a large-scale, university-quality product that retains a remarkable degree of student focus and attention, as well as a core set of community college offerings. But the demands and volume of those who are to pass over our UVU bridge are increasing rapidly, and it does not appear that flow will abate anytime soon. Whether we are building or simply expanding such a bridge, the requirements are the same. It will require thoughtful and careful planning, as well as disciplined long-term commitment in terms of its construction. So what specifically are we to do? Some of it we have done already and just need to continuously improve. Other plans are still in development and require a bit more consideration by the cabinet and the campus as a whole before we move aggressively into the construction phase, so to speak. Perhaps the most convenient way to address this is to turn back to several of the elements noted in our commendations from the Northwest Accrediting Agency, which nicely line up with our core themes and planning principles. The Northwest Commission was particularly and explicitly struck with how engaged the whole institution, faculty, staff, and administration, is with carrying out the mission and key aspirations of the university. As most of you know, engaged learning has been a defining feature of UVU's evolving identity for the past 4 years. The university's commitment to this distinctive approach to teaching and learning has deepened in recent months with organizational changes we believe set us on a solid course for many years to come. Upon my arrival, I recognized that engaged learning was a model uniquely suited for our teaching mission, a way to encourage scholarly activity and research that draws out the best energies and interests of our faculty and students without putting us on a path to become another Research One university, a model we cannot afford and the state does not need right now. As a result, I was determined to integrate engaged learning into the academic backbone of the campus. After a period of planning and transition, we developed a new administrative structure that could move us forward with purpose and resolve. In August, we reconfigured Val Hale's responsibilities, moving an alumni and development under newly hired Vice President Mark Archambault, tasking Val to spend roughly half his time as VP of University Relations actively meeting with and seeking out corporate and civic partners for various engaged learning projects and activities. At that same time, after a robust national search for an Associate Vice President for Academic Affairs who would oversee the academic side of engaged learning activity and work across campus to develop the programming and support necessary to advance this core theme, we hired our own Brian Birch, a veteran faculty member in philosophy and religious studies who was active in engaged learning long before the term became fashionable. Another key move was our effort to recruit Carrie Boone-Jones to Academic Affairs as Senior Director for Engaged Learning. Her leadership with the Institute for Professional Engagement and in Career Services has provided valuable experience and perspective. Marcia Haynes and her team in Internship Services have also joined Academic Affairs, and they are welcomed into a family of centers and programs designed to enhance the applied dimensions of student learning. These changes demonstrate the commitment of the university to engaged learning, and as we look into the future of the university, our aim is for every student to be connected in rich and meaningful ways with faculty, their peers, the university, and the community. Furthermore, we would like the faculty in every department to have a meaningful voice in giving shape to this concept. This is not to say that engaged learning can mean whatever anyone individually thinks or wants. Rather, it is to say that there are a handful of core principles to which the university is committed and in reference to which students, faculty, staff, and administration can work together to develop applications that fit their particular discipline. This is not the place to discuss those core principles in detail, but I do invite you to collect and examine the materials that Brian Birch and his team will have available just outside this hall once the event is over. At this point, let me just offer a few examples of the ways the core principles of engaged learning are being advanced by different individuals across campus. For Anton Tolman and the Faculty Center, engaged learning is tied to teaching practices that involve the active participation of students in shaping their classroom experience. For Alexis Palmer and Service Learning, engagement connects classroom learning to community service. For Jeff Torlina and Peace and Justice Studies, engaged learning means exposing students to the dynamics of global interactions and interdependencies. For Cheryl Hanowitz in Technology Management, engaged learning means providing students with hands-on technical experience to leverage greater success in their professional pursuits. Our aim here is nothing less than to create a culture of engagement on a campus such as these, where practices are naturally part of what we do in every department and discipline. Vice President Wilson and I will continue to work with Brian Birch, Val Hale, and others across the campus to provide support for the integration of engaged learning into the curriculum. We will work toward providing faculty and students the resources they need to find projects and activities that are meaningful and will provide the vital experience necessary for students in their pursuits as professionals, citizens, and lifelong learners. To better accomplish these objectives, some additional organizational alignment has been necessary. The Center for Engaged Learning has given way to a new Office of Engaged Learning, which includes an expanded portfolio of programs and initiatives. The CEL was, of course, best known for its grants program, which to date has funded over 90 projects and involved nearly 300 faculty and 2,000 students. Renamed Grants for Engaged Learning, the program's continued success depends on our ability to cultivate worthy projects for longer-term institutional support. Thus, in addition to funding innovative new activities, a portion of the grant monies will be set aside for high-profile projects funded in collaboration with the deans and student services. These partnerships will allow colleges and schools to phase projects into their areas and provide sustainable support for students and faculty. As we move forward, we will also do a better job of assessing both the academic and community impact of the grant awards. Please note that as the screening process for these grants gets more rigorous, and it will, this does not signal that the money is now somehow set aside to support traditional scholarly research, even when it is of top quality. The grants will remain committed to dedicated to cultivating scholarship and educational activity across all levels and disciplines of the university that engage students and faculty in the world around them. In addition to the grant program, the Office of Engaged Learning is pleased to announce a handful of initiatives intended to help generate support and maximize university resources. Among the most exciting features of the university is this remarkable array of conferences, lectures, and symposia we host on this campus. For many years now, the university has supported faculty and staff in hosting top-quality academic events designed to expose our students to a variety of exemplary thinkers and practitioners. The Student Engagement Initiative is a project designed to amplify the educational value of these events. In addition to recording and archiving events for viewing, students are developing supplementary web resources, including readings, interviews, and blogs. With the support of key faculty and staff, many of our finest events are participating in the project, and we look forward to its development across campus. In our effort to strengthen community partnerships and lead out on economic development, we have successfully launched our business engagement strategy. Initiatives here range from developing a China studies capability, where we have a Chinese minor already underway, to developing a robust technology transfer program. As to the latter initiative, I am pleased to note that we have hired Kent Millington, a seasoned and successful veteran of commercializing intellectual property, especially if it is technology related. He stands as a resource to any faculty or student with a great commercial idea. So to any of you out there with the next big thing after Google, come and see Kent right away. Finally, we also recognize the important contributions we can make to our local civil society. As a companion to the business engagement strategy, our civic engagement strategy will promote dialogue on issues that extend beyond those primarily related to business and economic development. The strategy calls for 3 specific efforts. 1, establishing a Utah Valley Civic Forum, a platform for dealing with some issue or issues of broad regional concern. 2, instituting regular civic visits to constituent communities to discuss issues of more localized concern. And 3, creating a community engagement award to celebrate outstanding community engagement efforts by students, faculty, citizens, and organizations. I congratulate Brian and his team for an extraordinary start on these essential aims. Another point of praise from the Northwest Commission was the way that we have been able to handle rapid growth, perceived as a function of our spirit and ability to do more with less. We have certainly done that. From Jim Michaelis scrambling to build out 15 offices over the summer in a hallway space, to Department Chair Rob Cousins adding dozens and dozens of English sections in the month of August, this campus rose up and collectively found a way to handle a record-breaking enrollment of 32,670 students. The collective opinion of most educators throughout this state is that this coming fall, UVU will be the state's largest university in terms of head count. Yeah. Here it must be noted that while the Northwest was duly impressed with our ability to do so much more with less, our growth rate does give them, as it already has us, significant cause for concern. Perhaps the most sobering element of the whole report reads, the Evaluation Committee recommends that Utah Valley University complete its work on a strategic plan for managing growth. So it is clear that additional resources must accompany additional growth. While the institution has accommodated recent rapid growth in enrollment and has acquired some additional human, physical, and financial resources for that endeavor, it is clear to the committee that a goal of additional growth must be consistent with both UVU's mission and its resources. Said another way, the Commission is telling us we are to be commended for doing more with less, but we cannot continue on this trajectory and survive. Also, they emphasize that we must rapidly finish what, fortunately, we had already started before their visit. That is a formal plan for dealing with all of this growth. Special thanks here to Linda Macon and her committee who were tasked with developing phase 1 of this plan, which consists of identifying just how much growth is coming and detailing every legitimate option for managing that growth. After laying out a clear case for action, given our mission and the best analytics we have ever done on enrollment forecasting, her report offers over 170 possible tools for tackling this problem. The Cabinet is in the process of winnowing down and prioritizing this list for a broader university conversation come next month. What I can share with you now is the preliminary findings on just how much we think we will grow and what will be required in terms of expanding our current resources, the first and most important approach that Linda and her committee recommended. Before sharing that, though, I think it is important to stress why we are even contemplating trying to accommodate the future demand that we anticipate. It goes back to this vision of UVU as a bridge, a big, wide-open structure, artfully accommodating as many travelers as possible. Among other things, such a vision is rooted in our institutional DNA. Over the last year, as I've toured the campus and visited with many of you individually and in smaller groups, my clear sense is that most of us genuinely desire to live up to our mission of being the higher ed service provider in our region, reaching students where they are. Put another way, this vision speaks to our core theme of inclusion, or inclusive. Now, inclusive means several things, including making UVU a safe place for people of differing ethnicities and political, moral, and religious viewpoints. But it also means that we actively reach out to students who need a second chance and a leg up academically. It is inclusive in this second sense that drives us to keep open enrollment and to service as many students as possible who want to come to UVU and are willing to do the work. Increasing access to and participation in higher education are not only an important part of our institutional mission, but the Utah system of higher education has included participation as one of its 3 primary goals. Along with completion and economic development, the Board of Regents and the Commissioner's Office have also declared goals in the Higher Ed 2020 plan that would necessitate an additional 70 to 100,000 students to enter the Utah higher education pipeline. This is an effort to achieve a goal of 66% of Utah adults with some form of collegiate or university training at the certificate level or above. Currently, only 39% of Utah adults have completed a degree or certificate. That number used to be higher. We used to be a top 10 state in terms of percentages of adults with some form of higher education. We are now 24th. We are headed in the wrong direction. More than ever, we, as a whole state, need to be looking at how to get more students into the system, not weed more of them out. All of these things and others thus point us toward handling substantial amounts of growth in the years ahead. So does this mean we just need to plan on taking every student who wants to walk through our doors in the future no matter what? Of course not. This would be inconsistent with our other core theme, an aspiration to be a serious institution of higher learning with solid academic expectations and proper institutional support for those who come and study here. What it does mean, I believe, is that we should plan to accommodate as much of the demand for higher education in our region as we can, as long as we get sufficient resources to maintain a robust university infrastructure and climate. To the degree we cannot get the latter, we will have to diminish our commitment to the former. Planning for growth requires data about and projections of future growth. In this analysis, we have factored in the following data, demands, and projections. 1, historical enrollment data. Cues from past demographic patterns have helped shape assumption about how UVU's service region will grow in the years ahead as the primary seat of expansion in a dynamic and fast-growing state. 2, UVU's own changing student demographics. For instance, the increasing rate at which junior and senior students are staying enrolled here at UVU. 3, regional and state population projections. Over the decade, this county alone will see an influx of 24,000 individuals who fall within the 18 to 21 age demographic. The majority of those will go on to college. The majority of those who will go on to college will likely come to UVU. The state system has its projections, which we took into consideration, and we also considered participation improvement initiatives for underrepresented groups. For instance, as we make special efforts of outreach to, say, young women who have historically under-enrolled at UVU, we will see additional increases in our student population. Working closely with the Commissioner's Office on this, we now have, for the first time in the history of the institution, a UVU projection model that matches and can be duplicated by the analysts at the Utah State System of Higher Education. Based on all of these indicators mentioned, UVU is projected to enroll 46,039 students in headcount and 34,320 full-time equivalent students by the end of the decade. Now, before you all faint in your seats, let me illustrate how I think this target just may be within reach. In order to plan for this growth projection, what do we need to add to the university to maintain our current benchmarks of university quality? Well, here are the numbers. We need 1.4 million square feet of space, maintaining an average 102 gross square feet of space per fall FTE student. We need roughly 5,000 parking stalls if we continue at our current mall-like ratios of one. Not sure how to respond to that. 350 full-time equivalent faculty. This would keeps us at our university target ratios of 55% of instructional credit hours taught by salaried faculty, 272 adjunct faculty, 503 staff, and $45.6 million added to our base budget from tax fund revenue. On the square footage aim, we think an ambitious but still realizable effort would be to request 3 buildings from the state over the next 10 years. This would actually be a rate not too different from our historical average. If, in addition to this, we could pick up 2 buildings on our own through some creative local gifting, bond, and lease arrangements, option we are actively pursuing right now, we would be coming fairly close to 1 million square feet of space. Of course, a gap remains. The difference would then have to be made up through other internal efficiencies, like delivering a greater percentage of our curriculum online or through other distance ed technologies. Moving to expand summer and school registration as well as weekend and evening scheduling would also have to become high priorities. The parking, of course, may be the highest hurdle of all. It is already the #1 issue of complaint that comes into my office, as the applause suggested earlier. I think this brief...
15 seconds to game.
Go. This video helps highlight, I think, the atmosphere on campus right now about parking. That pretty much sums it up.
It's 15 seconds to game time at the 2010 UVU Parking Classic, and the stalls are packed. Terry, let's take a look at the stats.
Bob, enrollment at UVU is up over 32,000, and student parking stalls are just barely over 5,000.
That's barely over 1 stall for every 6 students.
That's right, Bob, and that number doesn't change much throughout the season, so you can see why the competition is pretty tough.
Let's go down to the lot where we're ready for the honk. First up, we've got the stalker heading for the sidewalk. He's looking for a student to follow. The squatter claiming the middle west row.
Looks like he's going to take both lanes, Bob.
Now the vulture moving past the squatter and beginning to circle.
This is the classic vulture strategy. He likes to keep moving with his options open, so he's in a good position to descend if a spot opens up. The squatter has a different strategy. His strengths are a distorted sense of entitlement and patience. He likes to claim a lane early on and stick with it.
Now some action from the sidewalk. The vulture still circling, but the stalker has picked up a student. The stalker following close as they come around the far west lane. The squatter gets nervous. The stalker keeping the pressure on, and the student definitely moving into the Midwest row now. We're going to have a head-to-head here, Terry. The stalker with blinker on. The squatter moving in. The car door opening now, and oh no, it's no good. He just forgot his books. You can see by that apology wave, and he's heading back to class.
Bob, that's a real peril of the stalker strategy. He invests a lot of time early in the game on one student, and there's always that danger that things aren't going to pan out. And in the end, he's left himself himself at a disadvantage.
So the squatter's backing up to reclaim his row now, and we've got a student coming out of nowhere. The vulture sees it, he's making a move. Student's heading for the Midwest lane. The squatter is in reverse but moving slow. We've got taillights on, the vulture coming around the corner now, and the squatter is still moving too slow. He's going to have to hustle. The stall's opening up, and there's someone moving in off the sideline. It's the lucky jerk, and he'll pass the vulture on the outside. The vulture falling behind, and the squatter, can he get there? No, and the lucky jerk's pulling in, taillights off, and part. What an upset!
Bob, I can't believe it!
Are you tired of the parking game? Activate your UVU Student Bus Pass at Campus Connection, UTA. Everywhere you want to go, no competition.
I hope this room of stalkers and vultures enjoyed that. Sounds like you did. Let me just say here, we are working on the parking problem. This past year, we changed Lot B to be a new visitor lot and gained greater utilization of Lot D by changing it to an employee lot. We've received permission from the Corps of Engineers to convert the brush on the west side of campus into a new 400-stall parking lot. We've also proposed to the legislature, as part of the new Student Life and Wellness Building, our first parking structure, which will be built into the center of campus and add another 536 stalls at a cost of $8 million to be funded by revenues generated by parking fees. For a more detailed report about the long-range planning on parking, including the notion that we, like the rest of the county, are simply going to have to become more aggressive users of public transportation in the years ahead, please see Val Peterson's very nice piece on parking at the UVU blog at the university's website. I'm done with parking now, so. Okay. Our faculty hiring aim, this target would mean hiring roughly 30 faculty a year. Last year we hired 44 faculty, so this hardly seems beyond the pale. As for the base budget, we could deal with growth through tuition hikes, but of course, for an institution trying to make higher education more accessible, not less, tuition hikes cannot solve this problem alone for us. We will have to have help from the state. And if, for whatever reason down the road, it becomes clear that the state cannot provide that help in terms of buildings and base budgets, we will then have to open a dialogue with the trustees and regents about reconsidering our mission and our commitments to handling the kind of growth the state right now would like us to try to handle. Meanwhile, it is my personal commitment that we will do everything we possibly can to draw down additional efficiencies from the institution. As I mentioned before, Linda Macon's committee came forward with over 170 suggested tools for dealing with this growth. We will not try to do all 170. They can be categorized roughly under the following headings: expand resources, which I've already talked about, securing funding for buildings and base budgets, maximize the efficiency of existing resources, expanding delivery options for programs, streamlining the curriculum, providing student support for timely graduation, shaping enrollment growth, and finally, restricting enrollment growth. Again, over the coming weeks, the Cabinet will sift and prioritize a set of objectives for the campus to weigh in on this spring. Also, please take careful note that dead last on the list, a tool of last resort and only last resort, is restricting enrollment growth. Now, let me be perfectly clear. I do not want to restrict enrollment growth. Doing so would fly in the face of our broad institutional commitment and my own personal commitment to access and opportunity. But let me tell you why it must remain on the table. As mentioned earlier, we have to have resources to match our enrollment growth. If adequate resources for faculty, advisors, support staff, buildings, and parking do not accompany student growth in the years ahead, we must be prepared to act in such a way to protect the integrity and quality of education at reasonable avenues to timely graduation. Such a move would suggest negotiating a fundamental change in our institutional mission and role within the Utah system of higher education, but we must be prepared to move that direction if we are left without the support necessary to sustain sterling university credentials and infrastructure. As we wrestle here with the ways that high rates of growth add challenge to pursuing our unique educational mission, growth is not the only issue on the table. You will recall that earlier in the year I commissioned an advisory council to meet regularly and come forward with a report and set of recommendations on how we deal with some very specific issues related to student transitions, faculty qualifications, and academic programming in order to advance the university offerings and academic standards of the institution, even as we remain steadfastly committed to access for students of different aptitudes and provide the kind of certificate and two-year programmings more generally associated with a community college. This group met regularly through fall semester and here into spring semester, taking their responsibility very seriously. They have also just recently provided to me a fairly thick binder of recommendations with the rationale behind such. I am just now working through this material myself. It is clear that the group recognized that they were only an advisory group, offering in many cases several thoughtful options for how to deal with these issues. As with the material from Phase 1 of the Strategic Plan for Growth, my plan is to work with the Cabinet in winnowing down things to a manageable size, indicating the next steps that we believe need to be taken. However, before any decisions are made, this synthesized material, along with material from the Strategic Plan for Growth, will first be discussed in various leadership governance groups, the Dean's Council, UPAC, Faculty Senate, etc. After revising things based on those exercises, as undoubtedly we will, the revised material will be posted on the web for anyone on campus to review. A mailbox will be established to submit comments and reactions from anyone on campus who wishes to weigh in on these topics. I commit to do what I have always done so far with such exercises, which is personally read every comment submitted and revise our position as seem warranted based on that input. Again, it is of note that the Northwest Commission has tacitly acknowledged its approval of our dual mission and explicitly applauded us for this process of determining the concrete ways of bringing it into existence. In conclusion, let me note again the Northwest commendation that made me proudest. It is the remark that despite our massive growth and dramatic mission change, this institution has kept a student-centered focus. This is most gratifying in that student success is at the heart of our institutional mission. UVU students are excelling in the classroom and in so many other ways. Part of this is because we have such extraordinary students, but a big part of it is because of you. The extra efforts you make to reach out and lift up young people who otherwise would not see their own potential or have the opportunity to flourish. I encounter these stories every week of my life as I sit lunching with students in the Valley View room or getting letters of thanks and appreciation about things you have done. I wish I could share them all. Let me just note a few. Recently, Rusty Butler played a key role in getting UVU and some other Utah schools to be part of a delegation of student leaders to visit Russia for some high-level contact with government officials there. As a result of this, Richard Portwood, our student body president, not only joined the trip, but emerged as the de facto leader of the delegation, which included student body presidents from nearly all of the Ivy League schools. Just last week, I personally witnessed Richard deliver a report to a delegation at the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. He was so impressive that the Librarian of Congress requested his presence in a number of other private meetings with other leaders for purposes of follow-on project and activities. Richard has expressed that his success has been made possible because of the support he's felt from so many of you, starting with Rusty Butler's initiative. For those of you who read our UVU magazine, which should be all of you, you will have seen the inspiring story of Daniel Parkins. He endured a volatile family situation and attended 3 different high schools while working full-time to support his family. His parents were divorced, and he found himself at a difficult stage where he rebelled against a lot of things, most notably education. He received a diploma but was not expecting to do anything with his life. In fact, by the time he graduated high school, he had been kicked out of his house and was living in his car. His GPA and ACT scores were low. His educational future looked bleak, let alone his future prospects for work and a stable life. One day he was approached by Dr. Laura Hamlin, professor of English here at UVU. After hearing about Daniel's story, Dr. Hamlin took it upon herself to ensure that Daniel had an advocate. After reading some of his writing, Laura suggested that Daniel pursue the honors program. He was accepted into the program, currently has a 3.7 GPA majoring in English, and is absolutely flourishing. Emily Ballstedt was a single mother who didn't know how she was going to provide for herself and her 2 kids. She was scared and didn't know what to do. A friend of hers suggested that she meet with Turning Point, who then partnered her with the Women's Resource Center. She was introduced to Peggy Passon, who found Emily a sponsor, as well as helped her find resources so that Emily could focus on her schoolwork and family. Peggy checked in with Emily regularly and worked to motivate, inspire, and support her constantly. Due to Emily's ability to focus on school, she joined the Public Relations Student Society of America and was elected one of 7 of UVU's top public relations students. With this small group, she was able to go to New York, where she met with top business professionals in elite companies such as Pfizer Pharmaceutical, Nestle, and Johnson & Johnson, and talked to them about the PR industry. This engaged learning experience opened her world in remarkable ways. She said the following: "The thing that has helped me the most at UVU is the access to resources they have for single parents. I would not have been able to complete my education with Turning Point I would not have been able to complete my education without Turning Point and the Women's Resource Center. Without a bachelor's degree from UVU, I would be in a dead-end job, struggling from paycheck to paycheck. I have no idea what I would have done without UVU." Thank you, Rusty, Laura, Peggy, and hundreds of others just like you, sitting in this room and across campus, who are making a difference, a huge difference, one student at a time. Now, the task before us is a great one. We are indeed building a massive bridge of success, a bridge looking to be long and wide and sturdy. Just like the builders of the noted Brooklyn Bridge discovered, world-changing works typically require tremendous fortitude. John Augustus Roebling, the leading bridge architect of his day, first had the vision that the Brooklyn Bridge really could be built, despite what all the cautious naysayers around him said. Sadly, shortly after work began, he suffered a crushing blow to his foot when it got pinned between a ferry and a piling. The injury was so bad that he had to have his foot amputated. Not long after this, an infection set in from the surgery, and he died. His son, Washington Roebling, devastated but undaunted, stepped in to fill his father's shoes at the age of 32. But tragedy soon struck again. By spending so much time in the underwater caissons, Washington contracted compression sickness. He did not die, but became so debilitated that he could not oversee the project firsthand. At this point, his wife, Emily Warren Roebling, a lifelong learner who had been working with her husband to learn principles of math and engineering, rose to the occasion and for 11 years served as the critical link between the mind of her husband and those engineers on the site executing the project. This is just a glimpse of the challenges that had to be overcome to complete this project, and how fortunate that those founders and builders never gave up, never quit, never gave in to the temptation to conclude that it was too hard and the naysayers were right. Ladies and gentlemen, we need that same kind of fortitude. We need it because at some level, I believe we face challenges of a similar magnitude. More importantly, though, it is my conviction that we are in the process of building a bridge even more significant than the one they built. For we are not building a bridge simply to transport millions of human beings from geographic point A to geographic point B. We are building a bridge that will ultimately transform millions of minds and millions of human hearts, that will in turn transform the world around us for generations to come. There could not be a greater work. Thank you very much. Ian has suggested I could stand here and take a few questions if you like. I think we've got Kyle and one of our interns willing to put get a microphone out there. Any questions? Wow, I've numbed you into absolute silence, so, okay. We've got one right here.
Considering the parking problem, are there any projections on what's going to happen between UVU and UTA? I know that there's some discussion about severing the connection that we have with them.
Well, we are in dialogue with them right now. Their rates are rising very rapidly, we think too rapidly, and this is a concern not just for the administration, but it's received a fair amount of talk in trustees meeting. There is no plan right now on the table to sever the relationship, but we are in dialogue to try to keep rates as low as we can. So we appreciate the sensitivity. We're concerned that the UTA rates are some of the highest in the nation right now, and we hope that gives us some leverage to come back to see if there's some way to lower that. But it's something we're paying attention to. Yeah. Please.
You mentioned a few of the different projects for parking that are being done. What are the dates for completion? For example, the one that you said that hedges were being cleared.
Is Jim Michaelis here? Yeah, Jim, are we? Well, can you answer what the track completion date? That's for. Well, I won't put words in your mouth. And we are also looking at other options of possibly leasing parking space nearby. So Jim and Val are working very hard on this. This is one of our hard growing pains. We've got a lot of people that have come very quickly, and you just can't produce parking lots overnight, especially in the middle of an economic crisis. But we're aware of the issue. We hope you're aware of it. It's going to take some adjustment on all sides. We're making it a priority. We'll have to do some planning. People have to get here early. We have to think about public transportation. The fact is that given the growth rates of this county is just going to look very different in 10 years, and we'll all be adopting more of a public transportation frame of mind if we're going to survive the looming congestion. So. Yes, another.
Over here.
Yes.
The language department being integral to a Bachelor of Arts degree, it seems to be behind the other language departments in the state, especially is concerned with ancient languages such as Greek and Latin, which are taught here but aren't considered credit languages for a Bachelor of Arts degree. And there's some push from students and faculty for that to happen, for those two languages to be a part of the core curriculum. Is there anything, there doesn't seem to be much movement even though there is a push. Could you give any commentary on that?
Sure. Well, first of all, I'd say we do more foreign language instruction, I think, than any other institution in the state, just in terms of raw numbers of students. We do a remarkable amount of language instruction. If we're not the highest, we're close. This is an issue, actually, that the UVU presidents have got some particular interest in. We've been meeting to discuss, are there ways that we can collaborate together together to take advantage of resources so that we don't all have to go replicate and duplicate programs and take advantage of what the strengths of the other institutions may offer. So there's that initiative that may open up some opportunity for the connections and offerings at other campuses that we get access to here at UVU for that very reason, because we do want to offer more languages if we can. I come at this as a guy who loves the humanities. That's my background. Proud owner of a degree to nowhere, in case anyone was wondering about that. Yeah, thank you. So, but we do face limitations. We are pushing this new China language degree. This is in response to what the community is asking for and the way the world is going to work. I've talked to Baldomero about, as we move into the next sort of phase of life, we need to start to develop a strategic plan for what languages we're going to develop on what timetable. So there will be more forthcoming about that. Yeah.
Is it premature to comment about the legislature?
Oh, I thought you were going to comment. It saved me a lot of trouble. Yeah, it's premature. Thanks for the question. I should have said something about that. The legislature, I think as many of you know, has originally passed a base budget that dialed us back to a 7% cut. They've now added 4% back in, so there's still a gap there, but the legislature is not over. I think the governor is still pushing to get us to a flat budget, and everything really hinges on our revenue reports that come in next week. So we're not going to know anything really concrete until next Tuesday in terms of where that's likely to head. So right now we're bracing ourselves for some additional cuts. We've folded that into our request on tuition hearings. So if we have to, we'll raise a little tuition. I've made it clear to the commissioner, the state, that I'm not prepared to cut anymore. We cannot cut anymore at this institution and do what we need to do. So that's my commitment, and we're keeping fingers crossed that revenues will be higher and maybe there will be no cuts whatsoever. Yes?
You've mentioned physical needs in a way of space. And a number of other things that we need, resources that we'll need to meet this growth. What about academic programs? What additional degrees do you foresee that maybe need, or even master's degrees, do you foresee coming along in the next 10 years? Yeah,
well, it's a great question. I'm going to dodge it. But not for long. There are two processes in play right now that are designed to get at that very issue. One is the Advisory Council for our unique educational mission. They are coming forward with a list of areas where there is demand, both from two-year programs up through the master's programs. So I'm looking forward to reading that material, seeing what the data says, what the rationale is for that. Dr. Wilson and I have also are in firm agreement that we are overdue for a 5-year academic master plan. And that goes broader even than programming, but programming will be an essential component of that. So the UEM is very far along. The academic master plan is still earlier in its phase, but those two things will be working together, and I'll be looking to talk with our experts in academic affairs. I've got some of my own thoughts about that, but it's premature to start to indicate exactly which programs we see being developed at this point. So. Yes?
Has there been any specific developments here at UVU that maybe other universities are trying to adapt?
None whatsoever. No. Well, I think we are emerging as at least having the potential to show the nation how to do something truly extraordinary. If we can do what we're talking about doing, if we can provide this kind of large-scale undergraduate education, that remains very high quality while still offering a range of options, so that if you come in and what you need is something more like a community college experience, and it's open enrollment, and you have a horizon that has you pointed towards a certificate or a 2-year program, but you can also get a range of offerings, an exceptional range of offerings for university degrees. That will really be something extraordinary. So I think we're being watched. I think there are skeptics out there that wonder if we can do it. I think there are a lot of people cheering us on, saying you've got to do it, because something has to change in higher education today in America. The models we've got today, it's sort of strictly or more strictly limited to either a very expensive research institution or a strictly community college, don't seem to be filling the need that we have for higher education altogether. So. Yes. I'm saying yes to nobody I can see. There we go.
With the increase of students, do you see there any possibility of us getting a football team to increase revenue as well?
So how's your arm? Listen, I love sports. I grew up playing sports. There are just higher priorities for us right now. And it's my commitment that we get those priorities taken care of before we make that a real focus. Now, having said that, I do think there are things we can and should try to do, and I'm spending time on it. One is I'd like to see us get in a better conference if we can. Something more regionally based and gets us playing teams around here. We're also working our way just to, even if we're in a different conference, to play more localized teams. So I see that as a way that will energize our sports program, and I haven't taken it off the table completely. Rarely do I say never, but it just can't be the highest priority for us right now, given where our funding model is and the burning academic issues that we're facing. You didn't clap as loud as that as you did on parking. Anything else? Okay, thank you very much.